community, be with all people that are in need of care and are suffering in different ways from the world of abuse and neglect. Help all of them to render care and help us to add support in any way we can. Amen.
Thank you. Let's see here. We're recording this and we'll post it to YouTube afterwards. Let's do some club business. Let's see here. Let's talk about, let's see, Michael and Jim. I think you've attained perfection on the project. Would you get a summary? Is there any next steps on that?
I guess the only thing left really is to get the sign up, but I haven't really done much with that at all. You, Michael?
Well, I'm not real happy with the bathroom mirror. We got a cheapo thing from Walmart because I didn't want to spend $50 on a real bathroom mirror. If someone's got something that would be better, that even if it's not a real bathroom mirror, but that we can hang on the wall, it's a little bit bigger, it'd be great. And I still haven't stopped. I haven't gone in anywhere, let me put it that way, to get any longer pull chains for the fan and the light.
A question about signs. We had a sign made up. I can't remember what happened to it. It was going to be at the bus stop. Whatever happened to that? Is that going to go up or
That's
what's
the bus stop.
That's on the bus stop.
It is at the bus stop. Okay, good. Plenty. All right. Well, that's all good. I asked them. I gave Pastor Nava that broadcast TV antenna and the prototype of the hydroponics, and said, "You want to do this? If you want to do it, we'll help." If you don't, I haven't heard back from him.
Well, he said he was going to put it in the cabin, and I went by there one day to look at the antenna to see how it was supposed to work, but it wasn't in there, and I haven't done anything else.
Okay, well, we could install it. If he wants it, we can do it. I mean, it's an outside
I
antenna
think
with
he
a
wants
motor.
it on the outside of the building, though.
Yeah, okay, well, if you learn anything, we'll be happy to help. Splendid. Okay, that's good. Our next piece of business is their fundraiser event. Right now, the co-leads are Susan and Mike Goebel. And then there's various volunteers, including Michael and Mike Helmick and all that stuff, and I'll be a helper. So I think one of the next steps is to have a committee meeting. So if Susan and Michael could throw a dart, pick a day and a time, I'll arrange for the Zoom. Assuming you don't get together in person.
Susan and Michael are not in our meeting.
Yeah, Susan is.
Got his hands up.
Yeah, let me give her credit for showing up. Wave.
You're blocking your fingers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, your hand.
Oh, well, that's okay. She's looking for Susan to show she actually showed up.
Rick has his hand up. Somebody unmute him.
I know, it turned,
No, he has to unmute himself.
he does?
He has to unmute himself.
He's asking to.
Okay, just a second. Oh,
Who has to unmute?
Basically, Rick, he should unmute himself. I can mute people, I can't unmute them. So he has a technology problem at his end. Okay, so anyhow, for the fundraiser, it's a matter of picking a date and then taking the class, which is a 1-hour online class. And it's interesting. You actually do an auction. Half the class is doing a practice auction. Now, one of the things too is to kind of partner up with other clubs, like Northwest Austin. So I talked to the president of that. They said they're receptive to collaborating on their fruit sale for 2 lunch. But doing a virtual gala is a good thing. So anyhow, whenever we have this get together, pick a date, and one of the main things is to pick a date for the actual event. You take the class and we're good. Is there any other club business?
Well, I got a rather significant email this week.
Yes, indeed you did. Amberly sent Michael and me a note saying she's resigning. So, press of business, I think. So, say la vie. Anyhow, that's unfortunate, but that's what she said. So she says, been carrying the ball, so we'll carry the ball. Okay, is there any other call business? If none, let's go into the program. So we have
Norman, if has she not told the entire club?
no, I don't know why not. I was reluctant to send a note. Didn't want to step on her toes by any means, but we're going to have to send out a note when I do my note. My weekly email say, hey, Amber's elected.
Well, you can handle it however you want to, but I don't think it needs to be hidden in an email about a whole bunch of other stuff.
That's true. Well, the first choice would actually have her send it out saying, due to business pressures, I hereby resign.
You should do that, yes.
Yes, that you're right, Michael. That's the appropriate thing to do for her to initiate it. You're exactly right.
But if she doesn't do that this week, my suggestion is to take the email that you got from her and forward it to the club.
Consider it done, Michael.
Thank you.
Good point.
Just close the circle.
Right. Good idea. Don't leave any loose ends. Okay. That our program today, we're going to record it. The other piece of business is that Paul Nobles is making progress. He's working diligently on the website. And so we encourage you to like us on Facebook. The website's a work in progress, but give stuff, again, we shouldn't hide our line under a bushel. The key to our club is going to be not being covert. Anyhow, Christy, would you care to?
I will start.
I'm going to do a screen share.
Okay. Okay. So are you going to forward my slides for me, or do
Yes.
you want me to say?
No,
Okay,
good.
perfect.
That's what I'm
Well, while he's doing that, I will introduce myself to you all. I feel like I know most of you, but my name is Christy Glasser. I'm the Executive Director for CASA of Bastrop, Fayette, and Lee counties. I have been in this position about 7.5 years, and am very passionate about the work that we do.
Question, can everyone hear and see the slides? Thank you.
So it's not easy work, but it's necessary work, especially for the children that we care for. And so hopefully today you'll learn a little bit more about CASA, the work that we do, understand kind of where we are regarding how COVID has impacted us as an organization and has impacted our children that we are working with. So I'll ask you, go ahead, forward.
Why don't you just shift a little bit closer? You're good. I'll come to the mountain. Want you being back.
So if you look at our, okay.
That slide. What's going on here? Oh, I see. It's a funny mode.
So our mission for our organization has not changed. One of the things that we do is to ensure that everybody knows the work of CASA, and our role is to recruit and train community volunteers from where our children come from, train them the CASA way in order for them to provide the best interest in them in the court system, and to ensure that while doing that we are providing a safe and appropriate home for those children in hopes that they do not come back into our system. So that's kind of what our vision, our mission is. Our vision, which is following this on the next slide, it's kind of the same, is that we hope, we took the vision out. So there you go.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. No, leave it there. So I wanted to let you all look at the staff that we have on board, because they bring a lot of knowledge in the work of the child protective systems. Alicia Elam is one of our coach supervisors in Bastrop County. She has been with the organization about 7 years, and actually was born and raised in this community and lives in Smithville. And she is, again, a supervisor that supports the Bastrop area. Crystal Justice was born and raised in Fayette County. She now resides here with her family in Bastrop, and she is a supervisor and coach for Bastrop County. Mindy Maston recently joined our program about 3 weeks ago. She is a supervisor for the Bastrop County children as well. She brings over 18 years of experience with CASA. She was with the CASA in McLennan County. And so she brings a lot of that knowledge that she's gained there, and also did some work for Texas CASA as a trainer. And we are very excited to have her on our team and to bring some different perspectives and different work ethics that she brings from the other CASA. Sylvia Olson is a coach supervisor that resides in Lee County and supports both Lee County and Fayette County by herself. And we'll talk about kind of what those numbers look like and why we have 3 in Bastrop and 1 that supports the Fayette and Lee County children for that. Norm, you can move it forward. Next, we have Rita Floyd. She's our advocate, recruiter, and trainer. She's the one that's on the ground trying to recruit community volunteers to become CASAs. And currently, she's holding some training classes, and we'll talk about how she's doing those now due to COVID. And then Laura Odom she is our office assistant that helps kind of with our database system and tracking our children and inputting all the necessary things that we need to help support our kids and report our numbers and make sure that we're up to date with the numbers that we have regarding the children that we serve. If you look at here, and I'm going to look away and not at the camera, but if you look at our fiscal year 20, this is our fiscal year runs on a September 1st to an August 30th timeline. And we recently completed fiscal year 20 at the end of August. These are the numbers of the children that we served. In Bastrop, we served a total of 238 children, Fayette County 54, and Lee County 55. And this kind of lets you know why we have 3 supervisors who help support Bastrop, and then we have the one that supports Fayette and Lee County. Our total number of children that we served are 347. This is up almost 20 kids from the previous fiscal year. So we're still having an increase in the children that we're receiving and getting, that are being abused and neglected. At the bottom, you'll see where we have our volunteers and the number of volunteers that we currently have that served for that fiscal year. So as we move to the next slide, this shows our current data. This is as of the end of October. We are currently serving active children 208, and since September 1st, we have served an additional 29, and those children have either found permanency back with their parents or either adopted, or we have asked off of some of the cases that are currently in adoptions, but we have no concern for those children. So far we've served 237 children, and I suspect that based on the numbers that we have now compared to last year, we will exceed the number of children that we served. And I think a lot of those factors have to do with COVID and the stressors that those parents are under, and for whatever reason take it out on their kids. And so our efforts in trying to recruit volunteers to help serve those children and to be ready for those kids is very important as we move our work forward.
Yes, your demand for service goes up and your supply of volunteers goes down.
Well, yeah, and we're finding that out, but we're, some of the good things that we're seeing, and, there's some, I don't know if you say positive things that come out of COVID, is that we've had to change the way that we do our work regarding delivering our volunteer training. So we've changed that to Zoom, and we've actually seen an increase in our volunteer participation. And I think that has to do probably with the fact that people don't have to leave their homes and come and drive to a different location. They can take that training in their home. And so we'll move to the next slide there. It's probably crazy little thing. Well, I can just continue No, that's fine. A lot of people ask me, how has COVID changed the work that we do in CASA? And I think one of the things that we have done is we have had to adapt, as everyone has to continue our services. It hasn't changed the way that it hasn't changed our services. Oh, okay, so we'll move back here. So the reasons for removal, many people ask, well, why are our children being removed from their parents? And it would still be about the same percentages. 88% of our children are being removed from their homes due to neglect and the fact that their parents are addicted to drugs. And we're seeing that continuing to rise. We have parents that methamphetamines is a huge, huge drug that has just gotten a hold of them and have taken them to places that they have never thought they would go. I mean, I think the worst place you can be is to have your children. And so that's been a huge reason why our children are being removed. But the other 12%, we still have children who are being beaten. We've had babies that have had broken bones. We've had babies that have been born addicted to methamphetamines, cocaine, heroin, and those children are removed at birth. And so we're having babies taken home from the hospital that go to foster home. You know, they're not even given a chance to be in the with their parents, and that's due to their parents' fault. So those babies are now going through withdrawals. They're having to bond with someone else that's not their family. And so that's tough on those babies. We have children who are being sexually abused, and the physical abuse and the things that are not so wonderful in our world. None of this is wonderful, but we see children being abused and neglected physically and sexually. It is so traumatic for those kids, and it's a lifetime of traumatic events that happen to provide the best advocacy that we can moving forward. And then we have some children who are brought into care in what's called a wrapper situation. And if you see that at the bottom, it stands for refusal to accept parental responsibility. A majority of these cases are children who have kind of hit their teenage years and they're having some huge behavior issues. The parents have not been able to effectively parent them. There's a lot of mental issues that are taking place, and so they are children who need more of one-on-one 24-hour care. And so those children typically end up in what's called a residential treatment center that has those services to wrap around medication and once they've completed those services. We can move to the next.
One presentation that meth is extraordinarily destructive and addictive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, I will tell you that we had a foster parent that had adopted one of our children, and her child came across, her baby that she had came across. Wait a minute, I recognize this thing. This is the foster parent who adopted one of our kids. She was a registered nurse, obviously had her degree in nursing, was a nurse for 16 years. Came in contact with I'm not sure how, but came in contact with a guy who was hooked on meth, got her hooked on meth, and took her down. She ended up losing her kid. She actually committed suicide because of that path that it took her on. So you're talking about someone who was educated and knew the repercussions of drugs. And she said, I tried it once and it hooked me and I had to have it. So it's a drug that many of our parents had said, once you start that drug, it is extremely hard to get off of. And although parents are provided inpatient therapy, rehab facilities, it takes a long time for them to get off of the drug and to be able to make that life decision. So those are some of the things that we're finding. So how has COVID-19 changed the work that we do? the first thing that I want everyone to know is that it has not changed the services that we provide. We've just had to change the way that we deliver those services. So since it has hit, our main focus is to make sure that our children are still, their needs are being met, continue to provide those services. And we've had to adapt to Zoom just like we're doing here today. We have placements that have kind of set up their situation on their end to where we're able to Zoom in and visit with our children. But we do have volunteers that still go out and see our kids. They may visit instead of going outside, they stay outside. They walk around, they visit with the children. And so we're not just not seeing our kids, we're having to adapt the way that we do that. Like I said, there are some in-person. We definitely have phone contact every month, sometimes more, probably 5 or 6 times a month. Whereas we're video chatting with those children to make sure that they're okay. So our work hasn't changed. It's just the delivery of our services has changed just a bit. It's actually, we've seen an increase in the cases. For the people who are here, I had just spoken to them and said, I think last week or week before last, we received 2 new cases, and those cases came into care because it was reported by a teacher that the parents were abusing the children while the child was on Zoom classes. And so not only was that child humiliated in front of their classmates that were then seeing all this, the teacher had to kind of turn the Zoom off because she didn't want to have the children who were in the class witness that as well. And so kind of makes you think, if they're doing those things while a child is attending class by Zoom, what are they doing behind the camera? And so we're seeing an increase in cases, children actually. We've, compared to our data last year, we've gotten about 10 more children. And I would assume that those numbers are going to continue to go up just because our children are now continuing to report abuse. And so we want to position ourselves in a way that we're there to support all these children that are being. We've had to, as I mentioned earlier, we've had to change the way that we deliver our volunteer training. And so instead of holding the in-person, we've now gone to Zoom, and we've actually seen a little bit of an increase of our volunteers or people who are wanting to become CASA volunteers because they can stay at home and take that Zoom training. And so that's a benefit that we've seen. And we're thinking long term, well, maybe we will continue to provide kind of a hybrid in person and then some Zoom classes as we, I don't know what normal is going to be anymore. We say normal, but we'll see what that will look like moving forward. But we actively have a class that will be, I think has 5 or 6 in now that will be sworn in next week. And we sworn in a new class in September with, I think, 7 or 8 people. And so we're continuing to see people who want to make a difference for our kids. And so I would encourage you, if that's something that you've been contemplating, to call Rita, who's our CASA recruiter and trainer, and talk to her a little bit about what that means. Our volunteers, that they've had to change the way that they do things. We're still Zooming in for court here in Bastrop County. So we just had court this morning where everyone Zoomed in, and we're continuing those cases because what we don't want to do is stop permanency for our kids. And in the other counties, we're doing face-to-face court. We're having to take all the precautions that are necessary to do that. But we're having to adapt the way that we hold court, the way that we have meetings with the CPS caseworkers and everything. And so we're continuing to do that. It's just changed a little bit about the way that we do that. And then obviously it's changed our fundraising efforts. We're a nonprofit, and so we've had to cancel our fundraisers that we've had for this year, and we're trying to figure out what that looks like for next year. And so, I think it's hurt everybody in the nonprofit field a little bit about what do we do now for raising funding, because that's what we do. Part of our funding comes from fundraising, and so we are diligently looking at ways to maybe start something or have something held in the next year, and see if we can't move forward on having some funding to support our efforts, because we know that we're going to have more children. We know that that's just going to happen, and so we want to be able to help support those kids. So if you look at the screen here, what we know about children in the foster care system, these are some things that National CASA has really researched over time to see what effects do the foster care system have on children. And it's not, when we say foster care system, any child who enters the system in the CPS system is a foster child. Just because they're placed with a relative or placed with a family friend doesn't mean that they're not in the foster care system. They're in the system regardless of where they're placed. And right now, about 85% of our children are placed with a family or a friend. And so that's a good thing because they have a connection to that person. But it's also, we have children who are with other, with a familiar face. And so those are concerns. And while that is true, we also, those children are having to move from their community. They're having to move from their teachers. They're having to move from their friends. And so those are huge strains on our children. We know that most children who are in the foster care system, they're behind in school. Every time you move a school, they say you fall back 6 months. And so think about that. We've had kids that have moved 5 schools in 1 year. And so you think about that and what impact that has had on their education. We know that they're going to suffer from that. We know children typically have some kind of special ed or IEP or something that to help them in their school, in their coursework. And then we know that they're more likely to drop out. And so that's all the more reason why we have CASA volunteers to help continue to talk to them about the importance of school and what they can do moving forward. And I will tell you that you can go to the next slide, but I'm going to continue to talk. I will tell you that the department in the state of Texas is now moving to a new model, which will be called community-based care. This is a model that has been started in a couple of regions within the state of Texas. And basically what it's doing is privatizing CPS. And so for our region, which is Region 7, they will start to implement that next year. They're looking for a service provider, and what that service provider will do will then, the state of Texas will contract with them. That service provider will then develop services within our region to keep our kids here. What we don't want to do is, say for instance, we have kids that are placed in Lubbock and Amarillo. And so the reason they're there is because that service that that child needs is located there. What the community-based care and what that service agent will do would be to develop that service here in hopes to keep our children in their community. What we want to try to do is keep their children in their community, keep their children in their school, and so that it's not as traumatic, and be able to provide those services for those kids. So as we know more, we'll update our community on what that looks like for our kids. One of the things that National CASA has also found is that children that are in the foster care system are more likely to be adopted and not stay in the system as long if they have a CASA volunteer, because that volunteer is always trying to push to find permanency for those children. And so that's one of the benefits about having a CASA, is that we push to find permanency for those kids. We don't want them to linger in the system and to be placed there any longer than they have. So. And here's a video, and I hope that it works. This kind of sums up everything that our CASAs do. So hopefully you'll be able to see that.
What happens in the chance for children placed in chaos of food, fire, traumatic for a child? How can we give these kids help? How can we give them all the chance they deserve? For that, CASA volunteer. What is CASA? CASA is a portable social act to help foster their side. CASA is or illegal. CASA's come back. It's just like to get CASA, you don't need any professional training. Social work for the all you do is how you decide you'll be trained to work with children in foster care, navigate the legal system, court. You go to judge to help the child. As a CASA, your job is to get to know the child as well as the foster everyone on the call. Judges count on CASA volunteers to keep them updated so they can make possible decisions for the child's physical and emotional. CASA volunteers are one child, not the only. Work CASA staff entire process. They work with caseworkers, attorneys, child, physical, child support, foster cultures. Together, they create a strong support network for the child. This helps develop goals for the child and going forward. Ideally, the plan will involve rehabilitation of the child and parents. They recommend the child with other possibilities, searching for a level of preparing the child for a regardless of the outcome. We'll keep in contact, support, create, tell the case closes, so that everyone has the best interests of the child first. The support group stays connected. The child will have strong safety. This leads to a greater sense of happiness, stability, better performance in school, stronger peer relationships. There are thousands of children in foster care throughout Texas. By becoming a CASA volunteer, make sure they are seen and supported. Because every child has a chance. To find out by visiting becomeacasa.org.
That little video kind of sums up the work of what a CASA volunteer does throughout the length of the case. There we go. So what does a CASA advocate do? I mean, if you have the desire or want to become a CASA volunteer, right now, as I had mentioned, we are holding those trainings by Zoom. And I think she holds them 6 times. I think it's every Monday for 6 Mondays in a row, maybe 2 or 3 hours at a time. And then there's some stuff to do it independently. And then to observe court, our volunteers right now are going to Bastrop to Fayette and Lee counties to observe court because that's the only option that we have right now. And then once all that training has taken place, then the volunteers are selected by the judge. And then once that happens, then our volunteers are able to accept the case to begin their advocacy work as a CASA volunteer. Next we have, oh, you're fine. Once our volunteers are trained, we don't just say, okay, you're done with us. We continue to provide some continuing education training for them because things are changing all the time. I've noticed over the last years, we've seen an increase of mental health issues with our children. I mean, as young as 2 to 3 years old, we're starting to see that. And so one of the things that we do is provide some training and just some updates on what is happening with our kids. And so we provide a professional development training once a month. We do a lunch bunch, and all these right now are virtually, obviously. And then we have webinars and things that we direct them to help increase their knowledge, just learn about child development, learn what's taking place, changes that are happening with our kids, and to be able to make sure that they're up to date as much as they can be on just what's happening in foster care. And then, so there are some ways that we help. You know, the Christmas season is coming up, and so one of the things that we have done over the past few years is to reach out to the community to help for that support. Many of you probably know Dana Shook or remember her. She was big and helped gather some people from the colony to provide gifts for our kids. And I think Lynn Martin has now taken that over now. But we have other businesses and organizations that help support our kids. And some of the things that we look at is if you're interested in adopting a family, let us know. If you're interested in just saying, hey, I can't do that, but maybe I can provide some gift cards. That's the easiest thing. Gift cards, especially for our kids that are like 10 and up, it's a hassle to try to find something for our teenagers. And so it's better for us to just give them a gift card and say, here, go shop and find what you want. Those are some options. And or just donating presents. We have people that stop by and say, here, they kind of label them and say, here's a baby doll for a 3-year-old, and so we have kids, as I had mentioned before, that from birth to age 18. And so if you want to help in any capacity for Christmas, contact me, let me know. Be honored to have that. Right now we have 208 kids, and so we have I think 10 kids that are coming in and should be coming into care next week with new cases that are coming in. So those numbers, as I mentioned before, will continue to increase. And what we want to do is to be able to help support them. As I had mentioned, most of our kids are placed with family, and most of those family are grandparents. So we have grandparents that are on a fixed income that get 6 kids dropped in their lap. That happened last week in Fayette County. We had grandparents that are on fixed income that got a 2-month-old, a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And so imagine having 6 kids dropped in your lap. And so we were able to help support them by purchasing diapers and wipes for the younger ones, to be able to provide some clothing and stuff that they needed, and then to provide an HEB gift card. I mean, that's a lot of mouths to feed. I know how my one child eats, so I can imagine having all of them. And so we never give cash. We'll give an HEB gift card or a Walmart gift card and allow them to go choose and pick what they want for their families. And so that it will be a strain on families this year. We want to make sure that it's as normal as we can make it for them, but we do support our children and all of them during the Christmas season. So if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me, and we can help set that up. There's other ways to become involved. As I mentioned, consider becoming an advocate. It's hard work, but it's necessary work. It's work for our youngest citizens here. We have to be able to help support them through this. It's not an easy journey for them. They don't understand why. Most of our kids grow up not knowing that drugs are wrong because their parents are doing it in front of them. And when you see your parents do that, then you think it's right. And so they don't understand why they're being removed. So we're really there to help support these kids and try to make a relationship with them to where they feel comfortable with us. And so I encourage you to do that. We're a nonprofit looking for board members to help support our mission and our vision and our strategic plan moving forward. So those are some options. We do have a little bit of some options to help do some work and volunteer in our office, especially since Christmas is coming up, wrapping those presents, making sure that we take those presents ready and prepared so grandma and grandpa don't have to worry about wrapping them. And so that's some options. And then helping during our fundraising events, when and if we are able to have those physically. So if any of those just kind of say, yeah, that'll work with me, reach out to me, and we can talk more about what that looks like moving forward. And then just kind of our budget overview of where we are. We obviously are a nonprofit. Our budget for this year is almost $436,000. That has increased from when I first started. I think it was $230,000. So we've really increased our efforts there. About 68% of our funding comes from grants. That's the other hat that I wear in writing federal grants and state grants, but also receiving funding from our counties and the communities that we live in. We have a huge support from them. And I think they understand, the people in those positions understand the work that we do and the service that we provide for those children. And then we do obtain some funding from some private grants as well. And so that kind of makes up what our budget looks like. But again, the fundraising piece has hit us hard this year. And so we're trying to navigate through that and see what that looks like for us as an organization. And I think the next slide probably has my information on there. So if you're interested in any of the things that I mentioned today, please feel free and reach out to me. Our work is necessary. It's work that I wish I could stop to say we've ended child abuse in our community, but I'd be lying if I said that. We have a job to do to protect our kids, and so our organization is the organization that does that. Partner greatly with the Child Advocacy Center. They provide the therapy for our kids, and we provide the advocacy in the court visiting those kids in their current placement. And so I wish that between the two of our organizations, we could stop that. We're on a mission to do that, but in the meantime, we're going to have some kids that need our support. And so, again, as I'd mentioned, if anything just stands out that you would like to assist and help CASA, please feel free to reach out to me. Norma, I'm not sure if we have any questions in the chat or anyone has any questions, but I'd be happy to answer them.
Nice.
I wanted to ask you to clarify one thing. You talked about community-based care,
Right.
and that involved privatizing. Did you say children's services?
Yeah, it will privatize the child protective system. So what they're looking at doing is privatizing that and contracting with someone to then take over those services. So then they would be providing the investigations, they would be providing the casework that happens as a typical CPS caseworker does now. They would, that caseworker or whoever they hired, that work would then be privatized underneath whoever the state decides to contract. And it's different contractors within each region. So there's a couple of regions. I know Region 1, and I'm not sure if I say this right, but I think that's up in the Amarillo area, Lubbock area. They've already started this. They've been in it for 2 years. There's a region up near Dallas that has started that work. There's a couple of others. Our region, Region 7, will start probably next year. They're in the process of trying to have someone submit to be a contractor for our region. And so while it will come in stages, it won't fully go that way yet. The first stage is that they will do the casework, which is when the child comes into care, and then they will do, I think, adoptions. And then once they kind of get that settled down and that going well, then they'll bring in the investigation pieces and some other pieces. So if you want to, you can go on the Department of Family and Protective Services website, and it says it has more information about what the community-based care looks like.
Last week, April, maybe you can help me with this. Last week, our speaker was Superintendent Barry Edwards. And during his presentation, he made reference to some new program they were involved with. And I think he used the term community-based care. And I didn't know, he didn't have time to elaborate on what all of these new programs were. But when you said use the term, I thought, geez, are we talking about the same thing?
It could be a different. I'm not sure. I don't know. I just know that they called ours community-based care, and it is not in Region 7 yet. It will be coming. They're in the process of trying to recruit or have somebody write to the grant or whatever, write in to become that entity that takes it over. And like I mentioned, I think we won't start here until next year sometime. So I'm not sure if it's the same model or not. I mean, I don't know if community-based care for me is community-based care for the school. I'd have to get some clarification on that.
Any other questions?
You know, historically, our club has been an active financial supporter of CASA. And there was a time when it just happened. You know, we sent you a check once a year and we didn't really care how you use the money. Then we kind of worked toward, we didn't do that unless people ask us for money. And when they did, we asked them to tell us what their needs were so we could respond, you know, and you know, put it before our members and say, is this the kind of work we'd like to be supporting? And as you might guess, we've got to have a lot of organizations and a lot of needs in the community. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to support all of them. But we can't support you unless you ask sometimes. So I'd encourage you to do that.
Okay. I most certainly will. I think we have a huge need, and one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we can keep this process for those kids as normal as possible. And so we have a separate line item in our financial system that goes just for child assistance. And so when we have kids that were with grandma and grandpa and they say we want to play t-ball or we want to play whatever, and grandma says we just don't have the money right now, then they can come to us and we'll be able to support that. Or if they need diapers for babies, whatever they need, we have that line item. So that's one of the things that, that we ask organizations whenever or whoever, when they donate, where do you want this funding to go? If they want it to go for kids, and we put it there. If they say we don't care, you put it to where you need that to go, then we certainly look at where we need it most. But I'll definitely do that ask, and I don't know what that looks like, if it's me writing a letter or is there a form or something that we sent out.
Just
Fill
send
out.
along. It's nice if you can say some specific thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
You know, it's got our needs are, there's lots and lots of needs.
Sure.
And our fundraising challenge is going
Right.
to do. So,
Yeah.
but if it can come up with some finite
Sure.
size thing,
I
that
absolutely
might be
will.
possible.
Okay.
Yeah, just send it to,
Okay.
send it to me,
Okay.
and I'll pass it on.
I certainly will.
Okay, are any other questions? One more piece of business. Consider inviting your friends, neighbors, relatives, not your enemies, to our meetings. The nice thing is you can show up in your jammies. Just wear pants. That's all we ask. Let's see. Let's lead out in the four-way test. Of the
I have an item, Norm.
Yes.
Said that. I've had a phone call I haven't responded to yet. She had to leave a message that's interested in she says joining the club. I suspect we would like for her to visit first. You might want to email me with what you want the process to be for having unknown people join the meeting.
Basically, it's what I do, and I've done this with other people. The simplest thing is, this is for everyone. Is simply send an email saying the Rotary Club does X, Y, and Z, and you're welcome to virtually join any of our meetings in person or by Zoom. Here's the link, here's the password, and you join in, and it's a cup of tea, fine, but it costs the club nothing for anyone to visit.
Well, yes, but I mean, you don't want to know anything about this person before we give them a link to the meeting?
Yeah, the normal nomination process, that's true. If you have a person in mind, send it to them on our board.
This is a cold call. I have a phone message.
Okay, well, if they're interested, if it meets your criteria, it meets my criteria.
Okay.
I have heard of some clubs where the club president or maybe the membership chair will ask someone to follow up on the inquiry, contact them, have a discussion with them, maybe have a cup of coffee with them. So, I mean, it's a way of reaching out to that person and doing a little pre-screening, and you're doing nothing but building goodwill in the meantime. So it's worth the effort.
That sounds good. You basically, if it's the person who contacted you, one way or the other, then they know you. So just follow through. Again, we have membership challenges, but if we can be relevant, then life is good. Go ahead, man.
I want to find out where they got my phone number.
Well, April, I don't mean to dump anything on you, but you're our membership chair. So I think that very much falls within your domain.
Sure, I'm happy to reach out, Michael, if you want to give me their name and number.
I'll talk to her first and see what's going on, and then maybe if you want to follow up.
Sounds good.
Good. Well, thank you, Michael. It's good to have some outreach. We do this, and it costs the club nothing. And the dues are pretty reasonable. Pay your dues, by the way. But we always had this issue of Rotary costs money. In this case, bring your lunch, and life is good. So post this. We'll post the slides. I'll copy it from Christy, the slides, the video, and the life is good. At this point, let's do the four-way test. So thanks think, say, or do? First,
Did the trade.
second,
Does it better to all concerned?
third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
and fourth?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. Thanks for showing up, guys.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, thank you.